Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're listening, you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate you. Go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff that all your favorite YouTube channels ask you to do. This is Caleb Talley with the Startup Junkie team. I'm joined by my regular co-hosts, Jeff Amerine and Davis McEntire. Hello.
It's Bourbon Tuesday.
Bourbon Tuesday.
Hey, Caleb. How we doing?
It's Wednesday.
It's Bourbon Wednesday. this is what Bourbon does to you.
Well, when you said that, I was thinking, oh crap, it's a Tuesday or Wednesday?
And this is one of our future sponsors again, which we're going to eventually shame them into being a sponsor. Rocktown,
we'll
first licensed distillery in the state of
We'll bill them, bill them for all the promos. And today is a special day because we're joined by a special co-host, Tim McFarland, our neighbor. For those of you who are familiar with the Startup Junkie office and where we are located, Tim McFarland is our neighbor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And then we have Tim Miller with Central Standard Talent out of Little Rock, correct? Make sure I said that right.
That's correct. Yeah, we just go by Central Standard.
Okay.
The talent's just necessary for the domain, to get a domain of those words. There's certainly talent involved, but
you couldn't find a two-letter one, so you went with that.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, the idea of Central Standard, because the folks that you have on your team are in the same time zone.
Well, which is, I hope I don't have to explain what it means long, right? But yes, we certainly did the branding around the time zone, right? That's the primary value prop, I believe, of Mexico Talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the details of what you're doing today, you're a serial entrepreneur by affliction or selection or choice, however that works. And you've got a really great story from some of the stuff that you've done with SumoText and other things. So give us a little bit of the origin story. And you can start with being a collegiate track athlete too.
Yeah.
Well, today I moved my daughter into the same dorm room that I moved into 31 years ago. Yes. I was a freshman and driving through, I saw the statue of Coach McDonald, and I didn't know that Frank Omar's name was on the side of the new track complex, and he's a good friend. So yeah, it was memory lane today, driving up Razorback Road there.
Whoopee.
But so here, good reason to be here, see you guys, and efficient with my daughter's move-in.
So so as a track athlete, you're at the number one track school in the country, way better than Oregon.
All of us combined.
Back then,
way better.
My freshman class had a chance to win 12 national championships, right?
Wow.
Indoor, outdoor, cross country for 4 years. We won 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we swept this year too, didn't we? I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I would say no, but you may know more than I do.
Just imagine where Nike would be if they had started here around in Oregon.
It's still a very relevant program, right? The coaches have done great, and it's really amazing to see that, not die with Coach McDonald.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
It's really impressive to follow on.
Absolutely. Were you a distance guy when you were there? What'd you do?
Yeah, well, as a distance runner, you do it all, right? So in high school, the state meet, I ran mile, half, 2 mile relay. But I would have been a natural miler had I, chosen that as a. I got here and realized really quick that it wasn't for me. When a bunch of guys that weigh 125 pounds won't go to a pizza buffet because weigh-ins the next day. Guys that are running 100 miles a week won't eat pizza buffet because weigh-ins the next day. I'm just kind of like,
They were as much fun as the wrestlers, right? Guys are constantly cutting weight.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's some great guys, and I'm not saying that if you run track at that level that you're a weirdo, but there were certainly some people that were hyper committed, and it might have been a little turn off to me.
Yeah.
But 6 months later, my roommate is leaning, in Barcelona, trying to medal in the 1500 meter final in front of 6 billion people on TV.
Wow.
And I'm at home, just done the whole year with him and my roommate, and obviously he's from Canada, so it was, you don't have to qualify. The country just picks their best runners, but he was the best runner. But he made it all the way to the finals, and I'll tell you a great little sidebar on that you met. I haven't told this story in a long time. This is good. So Graham Hood was his name, and Graham put on the wall in our room this like a centerfold layout of Sports Illustrated. It was back to the series Think This. Remember the Nike series about Think, and it was Think Everything, just different pictures. And he had this picture of a guy running bleachers at night, and it said Think Barcelona, and he had it on our wall. And I looked at that thing, 3 times a day, all year, 1,000 times. And every time I looked at it, I just saw nice art. I just saw great photography. Until one day I'm watching him in Barcelona, again, leaning for a medal, and I realized the whole time he was thinking Barcelona. So that just shows you 2 different mindsets,
Sure.
right? Nice art.
Yeah.
So,
And you were maybe thinking about your entrepreneurial dream at that point.
I don't know that I certainly knew.
Trying to give you a good segue.
You know, that's okay. So I definitely realized that, I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
I did want to be technical. I always, even in those days, whatever technical was, the internet was just coming out. In fact, that was like back then there was maybe 30 or 40 websites, and they were all colleges, right?
Yeah.
So I worked in my college's published the website. So I was learning HTML. So I was definitely into all that back then. And my first job was technical. So I knew I wanted to do something technical. So skip ahead. My first job out of college, I went to work for EDS and had to do. I went there because I wanted to do their systems engineering.
Was that when Ross Perot was still
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
And I wanted to do their SED program, which is really famous, Systems Engineer Development. And they were, like IBM and others that back in the day, they were known for training. It was a place where you could go to work and get really good training. What I didn't know was that they gave you a little training, but they made you be an analyst because they were like, you can't write code on the Arkansas Medicare account if you don't understand Medicare, right?
Yeah.
And so after about a year and a half of learning everything about long-term care and everything else and billing codes, I finally got to complete that program and got out of there. Actually, I had to threaten to quit. It was like the Army. They owned me for so many more years, and I was like, if you don't let me go to Plano, I'm quitting. So I wrangled myself down to Plano, and that's where I kind of started, I guess, my professional sort of real job world. It was good. It was good training. Just skipping ahead, what I was doing at EDS was very new and kind of cutting edge, and IBM wanted to do the same thing. And literally, I remember just getting a call from this guy at IBM and said, "Are you this same guy that's doing this?" And he's like, "Quit. Tell him you're leaving." Anyway, long story short is, I went to New York and started basically the same thing I was doing for EDS, but IBM wanted to do it.
Were you in White Plains?
No, I was in Manhattan, but great experience there. And then I guess my first experience with entrepreneurism was my brother had started a medical supply business, and I could tell he was really onto something. You kind of know when something's starting to scale, and went to work with him, and we sold his business, and that's when I finally had a chance to sit back and see what I wanted to do. And at the time, my dad had just gotten a mobile phone, and everybody's texting, and I was just like, I gotta do something with this text messaging. So we sat around for about a year trying to figure out what that would be. This is 2006. And then early 2007, T-Mobile finally, the first carrier to finally publish the rules of what you could and couldn't do over the network. Until that time, everyone you asked, there was a different story. Can you do this? No. Yes. I mean, everybody had a different opinion.
Right.
But there was no rules until T-Mobile issued their playbook for commercial text messaging. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going with that. If that says you can do it, we're building a business around that. So we built some software that managed short codes, those 5-digit codes that you all see on infomercials and every call to action, billboards, radio, TV. And our software controls what happens, so from everything from opting someone in to those disclosures, polls, contests, surveys. We got into multimedia messaging, so we were pretty good at some of the more sexy things like personalized images and being able to give every dynamic coupon codes. The idea I could send everybody a different message. Well, everybody would be the same blast, right? But your coupon code would look different. You change your barcode. That's pretty. When we were doing it, no one else was doing it.
Absolutely.
It was pretty out there. And there were some other neat things on our platform, but in general, there was a lot of people doing that. It was a pretty competitive space. Started trying to do small business. We thought that was kind of when you're an unfunded startup in Arkansas, you're looking for anything you can scale. So
right.
Bars, restaurants,
Trying to sell anybody to
anybody, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many meals my wife ruined by trying to, sell to the proprietor of the place that we were eating and drinking. And I was like, honey, I don't want. Anyway, I had to. Eventually, we realized that scaling that sort of, let's call it $100 a month type of product. But we had some success. We had a nice little rep model, and it let's say it probably could have worked, but the features and functions we were building were way beyond that audience. Like what they needed to do, I could have built the first 3 months and just called it a product.
Sure.
And I'm doing these things that really only appeal to really big brands. That
it was true MarTech before anybody called it MarTech.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just the kind of stuff though that your small business would never know how to harness and never could. And so we just kind of abandoned that and really just started going the deep end of the pool, like just calling on the biggest, and got lucky here and there. By the time we sold SumoText, we were doing everything for Starbucks and Southwest Airlines, and I could Ace Budget Group, and I could go down the line. But yeah, it started that way.
And you also did something that I think is instructive and interesting to the audience, in that at one point you actually did a public offering, not a true IPO where there's lots of underwriting and all that.
I need a drink for this.
Yeah, but in fact, I can remember when we first met in the early kind of dark ages of Innovate Arkansas. I was like, "You're what?" He's like, "Yeah, we're a public company." And I was like, well, how the hell did you do that? Because you were the first early stage startup I had seen that
maybe I'm why no one else did it. Actually, so here's it's interesting.
And you had good logic for why it made sense at the time.
Well, so I told you my brother had a business down in Florida,
right?
And he knew a guy down there who what he did. I mean, the guy was one of these penny stock guys who I call him. I hope he's not listening, but he's a glorified loan shark, right? He looks for people that need money and shows them how to.
A deal junkie.
Yeah, shows them, well. So anyway, he had a lot of experience with it, and he was explaining to me how easy it was to well, you had two options, right? What the most common thing?
That was the guy right there, by the way. Sorry, no, that was my freaking watch. Siri just randomly comes on. Leave that in, because that just shows what the buffoon founder started.
What most people back then were doing was buying these, let's call it shells, failed mining companies, whatever.
Yeah, backing into a public shell.
Yeah, you back in it, right? Yeah. And that still goes on, but there's still a market for it.
Oh yeah,
it still happens right now in the SPAC world.
This is the great granddaddy of the SPAC.
It is. No, this is what is now popular. Was really what I was doing. What I did 15 years ago, or 12, whenever. I'm the past is the past. It's all runs together.
Right.
So I explored that, looked at it. At the end of the day, though, there was always baggage with that, right? There was always some number of shareholders that were left in.
Sure. Right?
There was always these things, and just through the process and talking to the attorney that I used, I was just like, we just file an S1. Why not? And I was like, I'm not afraid. Basically, I just said, let's just do this from scratch. I don't need to go buy a shell. I'm looking at the paperwork, it doesn't seem that hard. And so we just did it. Now, why did we do it? I was told that, first of all, I've never been a great fundraiser. SumoText has never, I'd say paid in capital is maybe at its peak $800,000, and that's over a multi-year period.
Yeah.
Most of it, my family, me. So raising money wasn't, but I was told that, hey, if you actually have shares, it's much easier to get people to invest. Like my friend who's kind of in the penny stock world, he was like, I've had all kinds of people give you money. As long as if they see a price and there's any liquidity at all. And it made a lot of sense. And I saw him do this for years. I knew he was right. And there were many companies pre-revenue that were dealing and had decent liquidity. And we had a product and revenue and we were real.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, they'll eat this up. Text message, he was just like, do this. So we did. Ironically, though, I'd say within just a few months of us successfully pulling that off, getting listed, having a ticker on exchange, the SEC just changed all the rules.
Yeah.
The rules changed overnight. And what you could still do what we were doing, but what you couldn't do was it's almost impossible for you to get your shares in a trading account.
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
Yeah.
There were only, at that point in time, only a couple of banks that would even like let you deposit their certs in your account. And so that was the rule they changed that made it so hard. So it still worked, and if all of my investors had, were a certain type of certain banks, and there was certain, it could have easily worked.
That was kind of a reaction to the pump and dump stuff that was happening, right?
All those things he was doing, I was watching. It was happening to bad, unreal companies, right? And he was like, "You're real, and you got a story." And he's right. Had that stayed and not changed, it probably would have been an advantage. We probably could have raised money. But as it turns out, within a year of us getting everything in place, there really wasn't anything to do with the shares. There wasn't a trading account to put them.
Yeah,
they were there, but no liquidity. So all the reasons that we did it just went away. So skip forward, I think about 3 years later, I sold that shell just like you would, like someone. I could have bought a shell to start it.
Right.
And ironically, I think I got like 300,000 or 400,000 for the shell. So it wasn't like a complete sunk cost. I mean,
And you took the assets and the brand and everything else back private.
Yeah. Went public, went private.
Yeah, that's it's good enough for Michael Dell. It's good enough for you, right?
Yeah, it was interesting.
And you didn't get accused of practicing law, right?
I learned a lot of that. I tell you that what that made us do was, we by immediately doing that, we had all the same reporting requirements of a public company.
Right.
So
which injects some discipline in the way you look at things, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was a publicly reporting company for 3 years. That means I did what, 12 10Qs and 3 10Ks and all
amazing.
that. Yeah.
So down the road with this deal, when you actually get an underwritten IPO, you're all ready for it.
Yeah, right. So I'll just, if anyone in this room ever invests in what we're doing, I'll just tell you,
we're not going public.
I'm not trying to do that.
So fast forward, and that's a great story. And we could spend hours talking about that because there's a bunch of great questions. But talk now about what you're doing and how you came upon your latest venture and how it works and the arbitrage you see. And it's really central to the war on talent for companies.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Tim's in the room. I've been in a CEO forum with, you go by Elevate Performance or you go by CEO forums?
Yes, Elevate Performance, yeah.
Elevate Performance, but I've been fortunate enough to be in a CEO forum that Tim started, and Mike Smith Jr. You call leads, host, what do you call it, Tim? Chairman?
Yeah.
So Mike's
the chair.
Mike's the chair of our group in Little
Great
Rock.
chair.
And we, it's a great group of guys. We've been meeting together about 5 years. And so 2017, I sold SumoText to a public company based in London. And great guys. And then I stayed with them, and we made some more acquisitions, and we grew that business. SumoText was their first acquisition in North America. So then we made a few more, one small deal, 2 decent sized deals, and 1 pretty large deal. And then skip forward. So I stayed with the business the last 3.5, 4 years, and then Cisco bought the business. And but going into the end of 2020 last year, I knew that there was going to be an exit soon. I said, I was going to exit or they were, but I was trying to stay long enough for them. They were really good to my shareholders, and they were really good to me. And I really wanted to kind of see them through their goals. But while I'm in the CEO forum with my guys, I'm watching, and I don't mind dropping names, and I've gotten the permission, but so one of the guys in the group is Josh Smith from Matova. And, Josh, Matova is a digital agency, and they're Arkansas first, right? When they can hire, they'll hire in Arkansas, and they have offices up here and in Conway and Nashville, and they have offices all over, really. But Josh needed more talent and was having a hard time filling his talent. He got north of 120, 130 people. And, whether you're backfilling, right, attrition, or whether you're at some hard to find position, you have to have bigger ponds to fish in, right?
You got to, yeah.
And so Josh went down to Guadalajara and opened an entity in Mexico and opened an office there. And I think he got, so I watched this. I was in the CEO forum when he said, I'm thinking about doing this. And we all talked about it.
Yeah.
We were like, none of us, we were all ignorant on it, but he was like, I'm going to see how it goes. No one in the room told him not to. So he went for it, and I watched him grow with that. along the way, Justin George, CEO of Apogee, another in our CEO forum. Justin, somewhere along the way said, that's pretty interesting because I've let's say the ponds of Little Rock are fished out. I've pretty much got every Ruby on Rails developer within a 500 square miles. So I could probably use some little help too. And so next thing you know, Justin's down there, and he now has a very sizable team in Monterey. So I kind of watched this. I was kind of front row seat because we're intimate. We know each other's businesses in and out. And so as I began to look at what I was going to do next, knowing that I was going to leave IMI soon or at some point, let's say it didn't take a lot of genius for me to recognize that, Josh proved it, Justin proved it, and yet they were both running their own businesses. And I was like, this could be a business. So really just harvested most of Josh's institutional knowledge and went down and figured it out. And so Central Standard is kind of the result of that. So we call it a talent agency. So it's talent and recruiting agency. Mm-hmm. But I like to call it a talent agency because first and foremost, I think what makes us different is we are trying to appeal to the talent down there, much like a CAA, a creative artist agency. Our thing is let's go get and find the talent and develop relationships with them, irrespective of the job, right? Because today what these guys get is they just get calls from recruiters.
Yeah.
Recruiters just, hey, make an extra $5 an hour.
And this is not a sweatshop play. This is going to get great professional talent.
That's why I'm starting with it.
That wants to live in wherever they're from.
Well, that's why I'm starting with the idea of it's a talent agency. So before I even talk about recruiting or arbitrage of labor, the idea of this company is there are people down there that are talented. Everybody's talented as developers here.
Right.
I mean, their textbooks are in English. There's 140 tuition-free colleges, 3 million.
Strong English skills and good engineering.
They have to have them. They can't even get through their college courses without it. There's 140 tuition-free colleges in Mexico, 3 million kids in college down there. They're cranking out 140,000 engineers a year. The U.S. cranks out less than 100,000. So,
that's a surprising statistic.
That is.
I bet you nobody in the U.S. that doesn't look closely at labor pools understands that. A country of, what's the population, 100 million in Mexico, more or less?
Boy, I don't know.
It's in that. I think it's in that kind of ballpark. It's not north of 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Population of 100 million is cranking out. How many did you say?
140,000.
140,000. Population of 320 million is cranking out 100,000. That's a wake-up call.
It is.
Yeah.
And they're doing
Very
it.
interesting.
Yeah.
But if you want somebody that knows underwater basket weaving, we got you.
We got you.
Yeah, absolutely. The philosophy-
Probably cranking out 115 of those. Yeah.
The philosophy. No, we wouldn't actually want to know how to do the weaving.
You know,
You just want to know the philosophy.
why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but the point is, I think a lot of people are aware of Latin America in general, right? There's a lot of countries down there. Mexico's unique, first and foremost, because there's just a lot more supply. I mean, you'd have to amass like all the other Latin countries together to kind of equal what you can find in one Mexico. But first and foremost, the vision was, let's don't just go recruit. Like the talent themselves, they probably get all
Getting
kinds.
solicited all the time, right?
Oh, I mean, no less so than if you're here and you're a Ruby on Rails senior developer, you're going to have a recruiter call you every day.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are like it's a racket. I mean, we're going to talk about game trust. We can talk about that later too. But I'm convinced these guys are all, they never say someone makes an extra $1 an hour. It's like, well, it's time. I mean, they're in cahoots, as we say. But yeah, so there's a lot of recruiters going down there. And what I kind of said was, I don't want to pull someone out of a good job. Like, but if anyone's in Mexico listening to this, our mission is not to find you a job that just pays you a few more dollars or pesos. But we do want to help people identify opportunities. And there are a lot of people down there who don't know about a lot of opportunities. And frankly, a lot of people that go down there to hire aren't necessarily giving them the best opportunities. Even the companies that have committed to the region often give them, I think y'all swear in the shows, I think they give them their shit jobs. They don't give them the sexy stuff. So when you can go down there and offer them, the cutting edge stuff, the hard stuff, the visible things directly related to the customer journey, it's easier to recruit. So our mission is first and foremost to identify talent, whether there's a job waiting for them or not. And then the trick is to kind of balance that with having enough opportunity so that you actually can, place some people and make some money along the way. But we're definitely committed long-term to the region. I think what we're doing is resonating. It's still a startup. We've barely been doing this 8 months. And, I don't mind sharing numbers. We barely cracked 30 employees, so we've only made about 30 hires. Now, obviously, if you counted Justin and Matova and that, or Apogee and Matova,
Sure.
that number would go way up. But that's not, I can't take credit for that. They did that on their own. But I can vouch for those people we've hired. I think our message resonates. They see that we care about their career. We want to help them find an industry. Look, I was talking about industry a minute ago. Remember I told you how I had to go learn Arkansas Medicaid before I could code?
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, to be a good developer these days, you need to know, if you're going to do fintech, you got to know that stuff. You got to know what all those words mean, right? Almost like a banker. And the same thing in the medical world. Industries are very much intertwined with developing. And I think there's a lot of developers out there who, let's say, are not necessarily working in the industry they love. So I'd like to be able to say to someone, hey, you want to work in fintech? I've got a partner that they're looking for, so maybe if you're into cryptocurrency, maybe you are like healthcare. Maybe you want to work in some, whatever it is, I want to provide those opportunities.
And so you get this labor pool. So questions on kind of the technical aspects of it. Do the team down there, do they work for your company or are they working for a client? Is it transactional business model? Kind of, how does that part of it work? To the extent you want to disclose.
No, absolutely. I thank you it's a perfect question because look, there's so many models out there. And so I'm going to tell you what our model is. It does not mean anyone else's model is bad or wrong. But so first and foremost, no, we are not an agency. So we do not arbitrage labor. We're not recruiters. You don't pay us and we don't get a headhunting fee for recruiting. We are what is commonly referred to as a PEO, a professional employer organization. Yeah. What that means is real countries, I'm sure there's some exceptions to the rule, but real countries that have labor laws and taxes and take care of things like roads and things, have laws on hiring, right? And you can't just be a foreign entity and pay someone with PayPal, right? So if you wanted to hire someone in Mexico, you would need to have an entity there, or you would need a PEO, someone else that had an entity there. So first and foremost, we are the entity because there's not many people that are probably going to go to that trouble. Mexico, as much as I brag about it, and by the way, there's places in Guadalajara that, make the nicest places in America look bad. I mean, Guadalajara is just a sweet town. There's a 6-block area that is nicer than anything Steve Lynn's ever built in Vegas. It's amazing, right? Yeah. But the point is, even if someone wants to go down there, it's still not easy, right? It's a very still paper-driven economy. You're talking about long lines with people who don't speak English. You need something, a signature, you might wait 6 hours. It's a pain to do business. Yeah. So our model is simply, when we recruit for you, let's say you needed a whatever, fill in the blank, fullstack.net team lead, whatever. We have to hire them for you, right? We are their, another term is EOR, employer of record. So PEO and EOR are kind of used interchangeably. But we would hire them, and they would get our benefits plan, the same package that all of our employees get, from health, savings plan, cafeteria, there's a whole benefits package they get, but they report to you. We're not involved in the project. We're not bidding it. We don't get any part of their. If they make 84,000 pesos a month, they make 84,000 pesos a month. If that's what you pay, that's what they get. We're straight pass through. We just have our own service fee that we charge. I don't mind saying it's $1,200 a month, and everything else is straight pass through. So if, again, we might say to you, hey, here's Juan Carlos, and he's It's $84,000 a month, 84,000 pesos, which is about $4,200, so 5%. You would see the line items for all of those things: his tax withholdings, his benefits. There's a 5% savings plan. There's withholdings and accruals for They have some very strange bonuses they get in Mexico. It's a very employee-friendly labor market. They're trying to recruit their investments for the tuition-free world that they have. But you'll see it all itemized up, and at the end of the day, even with our fee on there, you're probably, somewhere probably in the range of $30, $35 an hour is what that ends up being. I tell people in general, your good mid-level, 5 to 10 year experienced engineers are getting about half of what they are around here. Obviously, if you're in some markets.
And that's livable on the economy down there.
It's not livable, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So they're living well. That's upper middle class type of living.
Upper class.
Gotcha.
Yep. The more you go down into juniors, it's borderline free. I mean, the college students work for free. Like if you want interns, then you can, just line them up. I don't encourage that. In fact, we pay our interns, but it doesn't take much, and they're happy to do it. But certainly people out of college, the numbers are really low, like 60, 70% less than they would be here. Seniors, it's a little more competitive. A senior guy's a senior guy. He knows what he can get. And so I say about 40% for seniors, about 50%, and then 60%. It's kind of how to think about it. But of our 30 people, I don't think anyone's making over $40 an hour. When you think of, when I say $40 an hour, I'm talking about your budget as an American. Like that's all they don't take all that home. There's taxes, withholdings, all this stuff. But
you're going to continue to stick with Mexico, or are you going to look at opening other geographies? For a talent pool.
So I've already had some of our clients ask, hey, I've got this guy in Colombia that's been working with us. Can you add him to your payroll? And I don't rule anything out. I just say I'm not trying to scale this into I'm not trying to take this public.
And you don't need to. You don't need to.
Mexico will keep us busy. And I think if we ever did open another entity, it would be because one of our partners really needed us to. Like they said, hey, you got our people in Mexico, but we really need you to have an entity over here. I might do it for them, but I don't think I would ever try to go really commercialize it.
And the interesting thing about that is every conversation we're in with startups and with even large businesses, one thing that you hear everyone say is we cannot find adequate supply of full stack software developers or software developers in specific languages. Everywhere in the country, everyone you talk to will say that. And the thing that's really cool about this is you keep the talent where the talent would really probably prefer to live. And they're making a far above average wage to live where they want to live.
Yeah, building their per capita income up,
Absolutely.
right? Sure.
I give it, I use Apps as a great example. Again, if anyone meets Justin George, they'll know he tries to hire first.
For sure.
If he could hire here, he would continue.
Yeah.
He had to go outside of his market because that's not because he's in Little Rock. My other clients in Chicago and other clients in Seattle, and this problem exists wherever. I was talking to Christian Anderson last month, and he was telling me he threw out some amazing stats. I wish I'd written it down, but something about the average tenure of a tech stack employee in Indianapolis 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and last year. Basically, it's like, even in Indy, it's like people are staying in their jobs at less than a year.
Yeah.
It's down so low.
Insurance.
And it's because, it's not just the pandemic that has now sort of made this all. So that's the pandemic definitely has exacerbated it, right? Yeah. But these guys are in demand, right? They know they are.
Yeah.
And no one wants to be seen as I hate to use the term, but no one wants to be seen as a mercenary, but there's a certain point where your industry just kind of makes you that way, right? You're just who you are.
Well, to some extent, you can't argue with it. If you can get more, you're going to take more when you're in demand because it doesn't last forever.
It's like an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott may not think he's worth $40 million a year, but his agent knows he can get it.
Right.
So what's he going to do? Yeah. Say, I'm the only starting quarterback that ain't going to ask him my $40 million?
Right. Yeah.
He'd have taken 20 and been happy.
Yeah.
Especially with a broke leg, right? But the market's still going to pay him 40.
Yeah,
Well-
where capitalism is still legal, nobody has been required to become a monk that takes an oath of poverty.
So what you are seeing is that the people with deep pockets are able to attract talent, and talent is moving at a frequency it's never moved before.
Yeah.
Loyalty lasts only so long.
Yep.
And so besides the fact that yes, there's not enough talent. So
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
problem, right? Even if there was enough talent, it's changing hands at a higher rate every year, right? So here's the deal. If you're a growing company, it's a problem. And we exist for that premise, right? You need a secondary location. Like suggested, you're committed to Little Rock, great. What's your backup plan? When that position has to be filled,
Yep.
you can't fill it. And he decided it's going to be Monterey.
Yeah.
So, and we're here to help others. So Justin had the resources and had the success, right, of his business to be able to go do that himself. Like, he's got a team down there, right? He's has his own entity. But most businesses are not going to do that.
Mhm.
It takes a while to figure out how to do that. So most people are going to want a shortcut to that, and so we provide them a way to tap into those pools in a very clear, transparent. Transparency is another big thing, right? Most times these people, let's say the wrong people, are making the disproportionate part of the margin. At least in ours, the guy's getting what he's being paid. I mean, our fee aside, but that there's no arbitrage going on. There's no markup going on. It's just good for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the phenomenon is business growth is outpacing our ability to produce the talent that's required. And if you don't want the business growth to stall, you got to find the talent somewhere. And you got to find it where there's pockets of talent that's got the qualifications you need. One of the things we talk about a lot is it's not necessarily that we're not producing enough junior talent. It's that there's not near enough mid-level and senior talent to find. And it's all of it. I mean, you got to, I think all the developed world is going to have to be reliant on these type of opportunities. You'll see it in Europe as well. What they'll do in Europe is the expensive places in Western Europe are going to be drawing on Romania and Ukraine, the Slavic countries, maybe Ireland. That's going to happen, and it is happening because it's highly educated talent that's living in an economy that's lower cost. And now we've all proven you don't need to be at the company location.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pandemic accelerated the opportunity for people to get comfortable with your model.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Agreed. But I like your bringing it back historical. This is nothing new, right?
Yeah.
I mean, India has been underpinning American software development for 20 years.
At least.
If it wasn't for Belarus, India, there wouldn't be software in the U.S., right? They've been doing it. I think what's happened more though is more and more people are exposed to that. It used to be like a dirty rule, no one knew about.
Yeah.
And it was like more and more. I'll admit it, I got a team in India. Before you know it, like everyone is on daily calls with India.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so I think again, nothing new, but let's say it's impacting more people.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but how many times you've had to do this, but in my last few years, let's just say lots of calls with India, lots of calls with Belarus, lots of calls. If you want to have these calls, you're staying up till at least 10 p.m.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they don't. If you're going to catch
When
them,
you got people in a different hemisphere, it's going to be some odd combination of anywhere from 8 to 13 and a half hours difference or more, depending upon where it is.
from Eastern Europe on.
Yeah.
Right.
And
If
some
you want to
occasionally you
start-
get the half-hour difference in India, which I can never understand. But
I'll just tell you, it's downright depressing to look on your clock when you're before or after dinner and see that I got a call at 10:05 tonight. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it sucks.
Yeah, I had one from 9:50 last night in Malaysia, so I
Oh, yeah.
totally relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we named it Central Standard, right? We're
I
just
think
gonna,
that's a huge advantage. Having it be in the time zone that's going to make you relevant to Pacific Coast U.S., East Coast, Central time zone, a whole bit.
But the other thing, so we kind of hit on we hit on a couple of advantages. So one is supply. So I started by telling you the numbers. It's kind of shocking, right? To hear the numbers.
Yeah.
So they have the right supply. Accessibility is what we're talking about now. They're accessible, right? On demand, our same hours. The third thing that is, when we talk also about the fourth thing on my website is, the economics of it, right? So we've talked about the cost benefits, but really I think one of the biggest things is what I call the third reason to think about Mexico, and that's the culture. There's a culture of familial loyalty down there that is really unrivaled. They're hard workers and they are loyal, more so than anything. Now, will that change someday? And I'm sure the mercenaries will all show up and they'll all change. But for now, like we've seen people thrilled, the opportunity, amazing English skills. But all of our people are fully bilingual. Now, I'll admit that cuts out probably, half the pool. Everyone can speak English. If they're a technical program, they have enough English to get by, right? Most of our clients, though, they need more than that.
They got to be really good. They got to be thinking in English.
Fully bilingual.
Yeah.
Right. So it screens out a good chunk right off the bat. But the culture is really refreshing. I was down there last month and I was just blown away by the people. You'd be surprised. They listen to our music. They buy our products. They have iPhones. We share 95 border crossings. We share so much.
Yeah.
And so they get inside. Just little jokes. I said sometimes I'll use some euphemism or something that we as Americans say, and I'm like, do you know what that means? Oh yeah. And I'm like, I just don't want to say things that you don't understand. They're always like, no, we.
Well, the other thing I'd be interested in your thoughts on this is, and we've seen some of this in India, is you're developing the talent, you're getting them tied to American companies. They're building up these skills, they're well employed. Eventually, there's going to be startups that will come from that base of people that have developed these skills, that have seen how it's done in the U.S. We certainly have seen that in India. And then there's a venture community that follows that. So by getting them aligned with kind of state-of-the-art, leading-edge stuff here, it's going to have a residual impact of building a stronger tech economy in Mexico.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys to that,
and that's a good thing for everybody.
It is. Mm-hmm. Come on.
It's a good thing for everybody.
We want Canada and Mexico to do good. We are in the same. it's
because we're all in a battle, and I'll say it, not other people wouldn't. We're all in a battle against the tyrant called China.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And if we can make this hemisphere stronger, and countries that are controlled, that are democracies, that have vibrant democracies, we're all going to be better off against a tyrant that cares nothing about its own people or anything else, but it's trying to dominate all of us.
Absolutely. Right. And we, the more level that playing field is between us and Mexico, the better. Right? We don't want our car manufacturers going down there. We want them to have their own, right? Yeah. But it's good for everybody. But so going back to what was the last point we were on before you brought? Well, you had just said something.
Did I drive us off the rails talking about the comments?
Talking about infrastructure.
Bill. Sorry. Thank you. I'm glad somebody paid attention.
Yeah.
So I was going to
answer. This is adult supervision.
I was going to answer that by saying, I think what makes our model different and my vision for our sort of business that ties to the kind of the question you pose is most of the people going down there are just going down there to cherry pick the best and brightest. Like their vision is, what will $100,000 get you? That's best and brightest because that cost me $200 here or whatever. So and I have some clients that kind of have that mentality, like, and I'm like, we're not going to do that. I'll go get you that very best person in that field, whatever that weird thing is. But you need a mid person with them, and we need to add a QA person soon, and we need to start thinking about a project manager because that's what's going to change, right? When you
you're essentially building teams now.
That's the vision.
Yeah.
I want to help American companies that want to build a team so that we can keep this playing forward. I don't want to play the mercenary game of just how can I go get that person's best employee to work for this guy and find a way to make money in between. Just me.
And ultimately, it'd be better for the company as well if they've got a cohesive unit down there that all is company.
That's how you recruit referrals.
Yeah.
That's what keeps people to stay.
Yeah.
I've seen senior people at companies stay just because they have a mentor relationship with someone that it gets you through rough times.
Sure.
It bridges gaps. It gets you from one project to the next. That sense of, again, familial loyalty, those bonds are built through team. And if all you do is just go down there and get some bright guy in Peru and some bright guy in Colombia and a guy in Argentina, and you say, I've assembled my Ruby on Rails SWAT team, I'm like, I don't know what you accomplished. It's not sustainable. It's not going to last.
Sure.
Just as easily as you put it together, it will fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
And you're
That's a
big
great
on
insight.
business model. You have some beliefs on the strengths of the business model that you applied. Would
Well, so
you like to speak to that?
So you're what Tim's referring to is he often hears me talk about. I like business models. I don't like businesses. I don't like ideas. If I was an investor, I'd invest in business. Show me a business model.
Absolutely.
I don't care what it's in.
Yeah.
And no matter what industry.
That's a fundamental aspect of lean canvas. Is what's the business model and how do you know?
It's all people tell me they're right. Skip to the model part. How do you make money from who and how much of it?
Yeah.
You know. So So for us, I like this business model because we're providing value to both sides. So it's not like anyone's being exploited. But B, it's simple and clean, right? And I don't have to have. Let's face it, a lot of business models require a certain amount of scale.
Yeah.
Right? Until you get to this point, it's not profitable.
Sure.
This is at least a business that doesn't require that. When we just had 2 recruiters and just 1 HR person and just had 20 hires, it was a functional scaling business there. So I like the fact that it doesn't have a lofty scale threshold.
Sure.
And I didn't look. This is I turned 50 next month. I'm not. I still have a fire to work hard, and I put in my time, but I'm not looking to try to do anything super scale. I'd like to enjoy the work while I'm doing it.
Sure.
And so the idea of that kind of being a material from the start is appealing to me. That's the kind of model I'm looking for.
That's fundamental economics of business are sound to where you don't have to pour $1 zillion in, gaining market share to hope that you can turn it to profitability.
Well, let's face it. Also, I don't have a track record. Raising money is not my. That's not anywhere on my resume.
I got to tell you, Tim, the happiest people I know are the ones that built businesses and didn't have to raise any outside money.
Yeah, pretty soon he's going to be coming back to Mexico, and you'll ask him something, he'll say, "Oh, mañana."
It's just not on a resume. I've never done it, and whether I could or not, who knows? But when that's not something you can do, I was looking for a model that would have some immediate sort of break even in nature, and so I like that. We are investing in the business, by the way, and we are recruiting recruiters, and I'm recruiting partners,
Absolutely.
and I'm absolutely trying to grow. But there's no artificial until I have 100 employees and whatever. Until then, there's no.
But it's a business where you can very much get revenues out in front of expenses and be judicious about how you grow it without having to bet the farm on the hope that somebody will
Internally generate a fair amount of that capital, maybe. Yeah.
Listen, I don't. This isn't a takeaway sale, but I'll just say we're pretty. We screen our partners like we do our talent. I've told 2 people no this week because I could tell what they wanted was not a fit.
Yeah.
I'm really looking for partners. So if you're out there and you're thinking about this, here's how you qualify. Are you committed to the region for the right reasons, right? If you're there to build a team over the long term, it's a great idea and you should do it. And there's plenty of examples of people that did it and are having great success with it. If you're just, headhunting, there's much better places to do that. Mexico has really strong labor laws. Sure. And I would just, go to one of these countries that they don't give a crap and you can pay someone to PayPal.
Yeah.
Do it that way. Or just stay in the gig economy and just have one of these shops that just, take your guy for 30 days and do project-based stuff. But, if you're really wanting to grow your business and you need to be able to prepare to backfill, pick some region, whether it's Mexico or anywhere else. Could be another city in America, but pick some place and commit to it because that's when you're going to get the benefit of that investment. The kinetic energy,
Sure.
the referrals,
Sure.
the stability, all those things. If you just,
I like it.
you can't just play around and expect anything good. But so this also happened. My dad was a pastor of church, so I kind of come from the ministry family. And my dad once said, nothing sustainable in the kingdom of God happens outside the church. And what he was referring to was, we love like missionaries and we love evangelists, people that come out of town and do. That's great. It's great to get that going, but what happens after that, right? What happens after the evangelist leaves?
Sure.
Who's doing the daily work to keep that going, right? And I just believe that if you're going to just experiment, it'll always just kind of be an experiment. Eventually, pick some place and make a commitment to the region, whether it's Mexico or just another part of America.
Yeah, that's great insight. All right, we have one land the plane question that we always ask. This is where if Mike Wallace was still alive, he'd be busting through the door asking this question. So, if you knew before you ever started your first startup what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self? Because I know it's been a journey with lots of ups and downs. So, what advice would you give your younger
I
self?
should have listened to any of y'all's shows. I've listened to like the first 30 minutes of like a bunch of your podcasts.
It's the hot seat question.
Say to the end. What advice would I have given myself? I definitely would do it again. I probably wouldn't do tech. Like, my tech fellow companions, this will hurt their hearts, and this may hurt your heart to hear, but I apologize. But tech these days is very much about your partners and your money, right? It's really rare to think that you're going to bootstrap something through hard work or brain power. It's I don't want to say the fix is in, but it's kind of impossible. You're more likely maybe to get something that's maybe works with something else and hopefully meet someone, whatever. Those are the kind of things. But it's a pretty scary thought to be out there in the tech world when, let's face it, there's a lot of businesses that don't need to make profits. I just left a company that we were, $1 billion plus valuation, and we're competing with people that don't even care about profits. And I'm selling text messaging, against, Twilio. They're still allowed to lose a few hundred million a quarter. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just really tough when you're trying to pay bills and someone else is just acquiring market share. So I would obviously try to avoid things where
go build a conventional business that's got fast fundamental economics.
If you're an entrepreneur, yes, definitely. I think entrepreneurs.
That's the Will Gilbert story with Franklin HVAC. Same thing.
I think too many entrepreneurs are led to believe that if your idea isn't tech related somehow, that it's not an entrepreneur's not a.
That's part of the mythology that spews from Silicon Valley that poisons the whole system.
The fact is, there's a ton.
I have no future voters from Silicon Valley. As much shade as we can.
There are a ton of great businesses out there that, frankly, need good entrepreneurial sort of innovators in it. They don't need you to build another app or have the next fancy whatever. They just need good business decisions run by people that have energy and embrace technology. Use the technologies out there, right? There's so many tools now. So if I were starting over, I would look for an unsexy business that was making money, or where the other people in the industry were making money, but they weren't using the tools, right? Yeah. But they didn't know how to leverage, like an ATS in the recruiting world. And that
unsexy business that just makes money.
Well, it just needs for someone to give it the technology that is out there, right? Make it a tech business in a non-tech industry, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that I guess I tell you, I would be much more successful today had I started, let's call it heating and air, plumbing. And I use those as blue collar examples, but my point is, if it had been anything other than tech, because again, you want a correlation between input and output. You find a business where what you put in is very directly related to what comes out.
Yeah.
I was in a business for 10 years where there was absolutely zero correlation. No matter what features I built, no matter how many hours I worked, how many salesmen I hired, it ultimately just came down to luck. What really? How many times you hit the plate, swinging the bat, eventually you'll, hit enough balls, right? But there was almost no statistical correlation with input and output. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage people to be entrepreneurs in those ways. Don't feel the pressure to have to go chase everyone else and have a certain type of e-commerce or app or I don't know.
You're a Moneyball guy. Using it, you know, what's the business that gets you the highest on base percentage versus looking for the business that kind of fits the profile, the mythology that somebody else says
And
a baseball player should look like.
SumoText is a perfect example of that, right? I think I could get everyone in this room today to invest in SumoText because it sounds like a great idea, right? I mean, text messaging, that's hot. It's going to be big, right? Everybody knew it was going to be big. You have software's cool. It's actually cutting edge. Everybody knows every single thing you could want in a tech startup we had, and it was still it's difficult, right?
So the final land the plane comment is we get 100,000 downloads in 100 countries. Where can they find out more about your current business and you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Tim Miller, and you can, if you did Tim Miller and SumoText, or if you remember IMI Mobile, or even Cisco, that's who bought us. But the website's Central Standard Talent. If you just Google Central Standard these days, I think we're already ranking pretty decent.
It's awesome, man.
But yeah, if you probably Googled Mexico Central Standard, I'm sure we would come up. But Central Standard Talent, and yeah, happy to help anybody answer your questions. By the way, if you want to go start your own entity down there, I'm happy to, kind of give you a little blood and gut story, but it doesn't bother us. I mean, more the merrier.
Yeah.
If everybody wants to go do it, most of our clients aren't going to do that. That's why we're there.
Yeah, understood. Hey, thanks for coming on. Great catching up.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Tim.
Great catching
This
up.
is basically you and I catching up.
I know, we
Yeah,
need to get the rest of the word in as well.
And we got to
I kind of hide
This
that.
episode filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Thank you, Phil Brandon.
Yes, Phil.
If my lips got loose, it was because of Rocktown.
I promise I won't do that too many more times, guys. But it's been right 5 or 6 years or more since we were together a lot in the early days of IA.
Right, early days of IA and
around.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Good to have you up.
man, absolutely.
Glad you're up here.